Hi, I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And in the show notes below, you'll find a pre-order link where you can pre-order the full version of I Am Stan. Hopefully you've had a chance to get your hands on the Free Comic Book Day excerpt that I'm showing here. The full version will be available in September. So we're up to issue 6 of Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder. Now, I really like the way the logo is designed here, the logo by Chip Kidd. And you can see that the way it's, the perspective on it, the foreshortening on it makes Robin's name the largest name on the page, because this series is the story of, how Robin became Robin, how Robin joined Batman. But issue 6, Robin, Dick Grayson, does not make an appearance in this issue. And his presence is missed. Even when he just shows up for a page or two, he is an essential element. But again, Frank and Jim are telling the story, so that's up to them. I'm always happy to get a Frank Miller drawn cover, and so I have this here of his sort of redesign of Batgirl, and she's got sort of these like charm earrings and these charms with various superhero characters logos on them. Has a little Robin logo, so I'm assuming this is what her costume is going to look like a little bit down the road when Robin finally reveals himself as Robin. But sharp drawing. Batman is doing his Batman thing. He's out at the docks, out on the piers, shaking down informants, looking for information. And then, just what I need, some damn amateur showing up out of nowhere. So we get Black Canary showing up on her motorcycle, coming down, from the heavens, the superhero on a motorcycle motif. We've seen it with Captain America. We've seen it with Wolverine. I mean, we've seen it obviously with Ghost Rider. And here's another amateur getting in Batman's way. And then we cut away to introducing another new character, the character on the cover, and it's Barbara Gordon. And a lot of the verbiage in here talking about the backstory is, plugging into the larger story of like just Frank Miller's Batman in general, his Year One, his Dark Knight Returns, the sort of, Miller-verse of Batman. My assumption with Batman Year One was that baby James, who's born, in Batman Year One, I assumed that's Commissioner Gordon and his wife Barbara's first child. When his wife is pregnant, through that story, you assume the baby that's going to be born is going to be Barbara Gordon, Barbara Jr., who is going to grow up to be Batgirl. And so it's a little twist, a little surprise when it's a boy. But I assumed okay, so this is some older brother that we've never heard about before, Jim Gordon Jr. Although maybe there's probably some, imaginary story of the future or something that Frank Miller probably read when he was a kid, from like the 50s or 60s, where it's like the Super Sons or where it's like in the future there's a new Batman who's a grown-up Dick Grayson, and there's a new Commissioner Gordon who's James Gordon Jr. Or something. So he might have been pulling from something like that. But anyway, so the assumption was there's baby James is born, and then later on Barbara's going to be born. But this story, just seems to take place a year or two after Batman Year One, most likely Batman Year 3. And so, Barbara Gordon's a teenager at this point. So obviously, I don't know if this was something that just sort of came up in the telling where Frank's like, okay, wait a second, I don't want to I want Batgirl to be in this story. So, okay, how's that work? So the fact that, and James Gordon Jr. is still, like a baby. He's little. He's maybe, 3 or whatever, 2 or 3 or whatever, as per this story. So I guess there's a couple options. Maybe Barbara is from a previous marriage, or either his wife's previous marriage or his previous marriage, or maybe they had a daughter named Barbara who was maybe away at boarding school or something and just wasn't mentioned in Batman Year One. That's kind of the explanation I'm going with here. That's the one that makes the most sense. And then more Year One business. He's talking on the phone to Sarah, who's Sarah S., and who's going to become, his wife by the time of Dark Knight Returns, the cop who, he had an affair with in Batman Year One. and sort of the love of his life. And Barbara is in the throes of alcoholism. Barbara Sr. is in the throes of alcoholism as Jim Gordon is openly chit-chatting with the woman he had an affair with in front of his wife. So, no shock that things are just not good in the Gordon household. Barbara is sort of showing this sort of great attitude. She very very upbeat and peppy, but maybe there's a lot of turmoil going on in the house, and so it's sort of maybe provoking this extreme reaction. And it's the DC universe. This is how people react to stress. They become superheroes or supervillains, and so she's a Batman fangirl. She's got Batman posters all in her room. The Dark Knight Returns, some Adam West poster. She decides to become Batgirl, another amateur, just like Black Canary. She's being inspired by the Legend of Batman here. So we have like the silhouette of her getting into costume, and I think it would have worked a lot better if the wall wasn't purple, because then you have sort of this dark gray shadow against purple. When I was reading it this time, I kind of missed that element. I kind of skipped. I thought, oh, we're just sort of looking through her room, and then I was like, oh, wait a second, looks like there's some kind of silhouette there. So we are seeing a shadow. I feel like if the wall had a lighter color, you'd be able to see that shadow better. But in any event, here's the costume change scene. We're seeing the costume bit by bit, and then the final bit, the mask comes on, and we're starting to get those sort of censored bars on here. I think I'm really good at bullshitting my dad is blanked out there. Now I think it's next issue where things get really bad, where they had to recall the issue, and that's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. And so here it is, the big reveal of Barbara Gordon as Batgirl. I wonder if she does have a Robin charm on there. It looks like she doesn't. Yeah, it looks like she doesn't have a Robin charm. So good catch, Jim. There's her grappling hook. She's jumping out the windows, and so this is how she deals with the turmoil at home. Introducing a new character, Jimmy Olsen. And look, Vicki Vale is all better thanks to the intervention of that surgeon that Batman got for her, delivered to America by Superman at Batman's urging. And now Jimmy Olsen comes to visit. Vicki Vale summoned him there, and this is Cub reporter Jimmy Olsen, and he's got a major crush on Vicki Vale. He's bringing flowers to her, hoping to impress her with these roses, and he gets in there, and the room is just filled with flowers sent by Bruce Wayne. So so much for that. And then we have the sort of the graduate composition here, and then Vicki Vale gets changed. Jimmy Olsen turns around. He doesn't watch as she gets dressed. Really, he doesn't. Which, again, there was a moment like this in handled in one panel rather than six, but in Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, where Lana Lang tells Jimmy, turn around while I get dressed into my superhero costume. Miller sort of extends that moment here, and thinking about Jimmy Olsen's place in the Miller Batverse, where Jimmy Olsen grows up to become Galaxy Broadcasting president James Olsen. And Galaxy Broadcasting being the GBS, the television network where Clark Kent was a TV reporter in the 70s and early 80s. From what I gather, was a Jack Kirby contribution to the Superman mythos. When Jack Kirby came over to DC, one of the first things they asked him is like, we're going to revamp Superman. What kind of ideas do you have? And I think it was Jack who introduced GBS, and Morgan Edge was the president of GBS, who we see in the Jack Kirby, Jimmy Olsen comics, which will be reviewed on this channel at some point. And now we have Black Canary, out on patrol, busting some bad guys. A repetition of what went on in the bar. Now she's, swinging these nunchucks. I don't know if these like 3-part nunchucks. I'm sure they have a name that I just don't know. And knocks the tooth out of this guy. Knocks the teeth out of this guy. A lot of teeth flying in Frank Miller Batman comics, very very famously in the World's Funnest parody comic, where Frank Miller draws a section of it, and there's just like dozens and dozens of teeth spewing every time Batman punches somebody. Yes, it's good to be alive. We're just talking about this artist the other day. She's a little different than Batman. She beats up the criminals, but then she views herself as a Robin Hood. She takes their money to give to the poor, namely herself. It's a profitable enterprise which she's in. That's how all these sort of reflections of Batman. It's how they shine different light on Batman and how they contrast with Batman. And now the police have shown up and have her cornered. And now Batman's one of the guys who's involved in the assassination of Dick Grayson's parents is working for the police, and so they're rearming him. You've got yourself some powerful connections, whoever it was that sprung you. Here's that heater we never found. If I was you, I'd toss it straight into the drink. And he's seeing all kinds of hallucinations because of the neurotoxin that Batman used on him an issue or two ago. And so he's seeing worms crawling out of this guy's face, a snake on his head. And Batman springs into action, laughing all the way, like Steve Ditko's Creeper or, the Joker. Eat glass, lawman. So we get one of those, Jim Lee doing his version of the classic Frank Miller superhero or super character, kicking through the windshield of a car. What comes to mind is Sin City, but it's been in Daredevil. It's been in everything. And in the rearview mirror, we see Batman's foot going right into this guy's face, reflected here. I'm always a fan of reflections in comics. Eat glass, lawman. Sometimes a fellow just can't help himself, especially when it comes to taking down a rotten cop. And now he's got Jocko Boy, the guy who's involved in the I think is the killer of the Graysons, at least the trigger man. There's somebody higher up the ladder who's directing all this, who I assume will be if this story ever finishes, will be the last part. And I have some theories about how the series is going to finish. There are two people out there who know it, Frank Miller and Jim Lee. Jim Lee has said that Frank has sort of at least told him the broad strokes of what's going to happen at the end of this, by the end of this series. Batman hears a bunch of gunfire, realizes it's that amateur again, and so he's gonna drop Jocko Boy for the moment and go check it out. Close up of the sort of Dracula feet with the bottom of the cape. Black Canary cornered, I guess not by the cops, but by this well-armed gang who's firing Uzis at her. And now Batman shows up. Oh, sweet Jesus, it's the goddamn Batman. To be continued. So a lot of things up in the air in this issue. Some turning points. Would have liked Dick Grayson to show up a little bit, but who am I to say? You just keep throwing in different elements, having different characters. Weave in and out of it, and as long as you come up with a cool ending, it's all good. Hopefully that ending, will come. It is like, there's Omega the Unknown. It's like Steve Gerber and Mary Screens had an ending for it. The series got canceled, but if they were ever, called in to continue that story, they did have, more stories to go. They had a sense of where they were going with it, and they knew how the story was going to end, or had some sense of it. And then, Steve Gerber died before that was able to come to fruition. And I assume Mary Screens is still alive, but sometimes these stories just never get told and are lost for all time. And hopefully that doesn't happen with this one. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And in the show notes below, you can follow the pre-order link to pre-order the full version of I Am Stan, which will be out in September. I'll see you next time.